Chennai Center for China Studies and Regional Director of National Maritime Foundation, Chennai chapter. He is the senior and your practitioners, professional practitioners, who always will stands with me. And we also have a senior. We also have a senior professor, Professor A.K. Pasha, from Texas, and former Dean and Director, Center for West Asian Studies, JNU New Delhi. He also, when I invited him in a short notice, and 2 days back only, I requested sir to join us immediately without having second thought. Sir joined us. Thank you, sir, and great welcome to you, sir. And,
thank you.
We also expected to have Dr. Marina Boroskia, and due to technical issue, she could not join us. And she also Doctor of Economics and head of the working group at the BRICS Export Council, Russia. Maybe shortly, once she get a network, she may join us. And for her also, grand welcome to in absence of her. And again, I will come to next subject expert from Research and Information System for Developing Countries, New Delhi, Dr. Priyadarshi Das, Associate Professor, Research and Information System, as I told you, for Developing Countries, New Delhi. Welcome, sir, to the discussion. And we also have a leading expert at the BRICS Expert Council, Anton Afanasyev, and leading researcher at the Southern Federal University, authorized representative for international relations with the BSEC member states, state expert on science and technology, vice president on international relations at the BSARC Facilitation Association. And when it comes to offline, subject expert, we have Dr. Krishna Prasad N, Director, Kaveri Ayurvedic Medical College and College and Hospital, and he also Managing Director for Nature Bell Wellness Clinic and Mysuru. And we also have an young research officer, research analyst, Mr. Rahul Karan Reddy. He is a research analyst, Organization of Research on China and Asia, India. At the end, we should thankful to Sapna, research officer. I also extend my welcome to her for the panel discussion. She is the one. Without it could not possible to shape the program. She put a lot of effort to shaping the program, sir. And at the end, I welcome all the participants through online mode. And now I request Professor Devaraja Gowda sir to deliver his to address our panel discussion.
Good evening, everyone. I feel proud to be a part of the discussion. I congratulate the Department of International Relations, RSS College, University of Mysore, and Chennai Center for China Students for organizing today's relevant discussion. The conclusion of 16th BRICS Summit under the chairmanship of Russia has brought the Global South countries to the center stage. The expansion of BRICS will boost trade and cooperation and also lead to sustainable development of countries in the field of energy. It has paved the way for stronger bilateral relations among the leading member states. BRICS is having crucial to address challenges of Global South. BRICS can play an important role in addressing the issues of the developing countries of the Global South. The BRICS is having major role in issues pertaining to the Global South, the attainment of sustainable development goals, creating a Global South discourse on combating climate change and mechanism that can streamline and promote BRICS trade and investment through potential legislation on standards and patents. With the efforts of the BRICS towards cultural exchange among member states, the understanding among people to people connect has increased. I hope today's discussion will be informative and beneficial to students. Once again, I thank and congratulate the organizers.
Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable address. And I request Commodore Vasan to continue the panel discussion and moderate the program, sir. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bharti, and it's always a great pleasure to be doing programs with you, and this is very timely. And the fact that Dr. Bharti attended the sessions in Moscow, the preliminary summits, etc., is of great significance because she will be able to bring to the table her own analysis of what went on. Now, while the BRICS itself has been, a great success, uh, what has this time happened is that on the sidelines, the fact that India and Russia, India and China were able to sort out their differences and pave the way ahead for normalization of relations has become an important hallmark of this BRICS forum, though it was not intended to be so. But everybody is rejoicing with the fact that something like this has happened. This was long overdue, and people involved have been working very hard behind the scenes. As all of us know, the relations between India and China are of phenomenal significance to Asian security. No, you did make a reference to the voice of the South. No, who better can shape the voice of the South than India and China? China, which is, would like to call itself a developing country, but is already a developed country. Yet, the point here is that they are in a position to contribute to the cause of bringing the global South together and lending that voice, which will ensure that there are alternate systems in place to counter the hegemony of the West. It not just starts with dollar. People are talking about dollarization, de-dollarization. They're looking at alternate forms of the currencies. But the point here is that yes, the future is bright, and the fact that India and China have put their differences behind them, and many other countries have shown interest. I think Dr. Bharti also made a mention of the number of countries who have shown interest in expanding the entire base of BRICS. So you see, countries from across continents, including UAE, Saudi Arabia, the developing South, and even other countries are now showing great interest in BRICS because by and large, the system that the world has witnessed for decades since the World War has provided a phenomenal number of advantages to the West, whether it is terms of technology, whether it is in terms of leading the voice of the globe, whether it is the participation in international organizations such as the United Nations Security Council, the WHO, and various other forms. So it is the West that has had a say in shaping the future of the globe. And so therefore, the alternate voices that we keep clamoring for have now found certain amount of platforms which are allowing them to be part of the new initiative to counter the narratives of the West on one hand, and also to shape their own. It's not that you are in conflict with the West. The idea is to be able to have such agendas which takes the global South, the developing South, and the developed West together in various forums. I think our own G20, the way in which it was conducted in India, is a classic example of how leaderships will, shape the policies of the developing countries. And third, I think again, Dr. Bharti made a point about, the digital education, digital transactions, etc. These are of great importance because we are now in a digital world. Without the digital world, would not have been able to conduct this program today here, virtually, from across continents. So, this is the rest of the BRICS program. And, by all counts, I'm sure I'll leave to the panelists to, tell us about what are the takeaways from this BRICS and what are the pros and cons of this new developing global structure, that would shape the future of not just India but all the developing countries into the coming centuries. So this is by all counts, in my assessment, a very important development. No, there are also other issues. Some of them look at it as negative, but I don't look at it that way. I'm talking about the decision of Brazil to not to be part of BRI. I do not look at it as a negative development at all. Uh, Please remember that India was the first country of this bloc to say that we do not endorse such, unilateral agreements such as the BRI, nor do we accept the incursion or infringement of sovereignty. I'm referring to the China POK economic corridor. And therefore, when Brazil has said very clearly that they are going to have new levels of partnership with China, but it will not be on the basis of some kind of an agreement that will bind them in some unilateral manner, which may infringe on their own aspiration. So I think these are some of the important takeaways of the BRICS. And as an Indian and as a practicing academician, I feel that the most important thing that has happened to India and China are the fact that the most important thing that has happened is that India and China are working towards the approachment. I'm not saying that everything is hunky dory, we resolved our differences. There are differences, there will be continued differences. But the point that you made at the beginning, the point that you felt it important to resolve these issues before the BRICS summit is itself a very positive sign in this age of conflict. You already have conflicts going on in one theater in Ukraine, or you have another one which is going on in Middle East, which seems to be, escalating day by day. Everybody is keeping their fingers crossed and saying that Iran now should not step up its responses. Likewise, in Ukraine, people are trying to work out and see when would they be in a position to, bring about some kind of a peace to this ongoing war in Ukraine and Russia. So this is the broad framework of discussions that I wanted to identify today. And thereafter, I will leave it to the panelists. And I will request Dr. Bharti and Sapna to keep a tab on the time because we have, I think, overall maybe another 30, 35 minutes. But it's important to listen to the speakers who have taken so much of time and are also joining us from across different continents, including like Professor Basha, who's joined us from Texas. Therefore, time is important. Discussions are important. So I would request Sapna to kindly keep a tab on the on the proceedings and also issue. There will be no introduction of each speaker. All this will be available separately. So it move on to the straight discussion points and also wherever other speakers feel that their points have already been covered, I will request them to ensure that they do not repeat it. And they could always say that we already been covered. I would like to cross a new ground. So with that, I would again like to thank the organizer for this timely event and hand over to Sapna for basically bringing in the speakers on a sequential basis and also to ensure that the timings are met. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you,
Sapna, are
sir.
you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So with the permission of all the distinguished speakers, I call upon our first speaker for today, Professor A.K. Pasha, who is a former Dean and Director of Center for West Asian Studies, JNU, New Delhi. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Principal of Maharajas College, Dr. Bharti, Commodore Vasan. I have been asked to speak on BRICS and Global South, redefining power and partnership in a multipolar world. It's a very challenging topic. First of all, I would like to say here that BRICS is a major initiative from the global south countries, especially from South Africa, from Brazil, and from India. And later on, China and Russia joined, and now it has become a sort of a movement where most of the countries from the south would like to join this new uh, future, as I say it, because the Western-led so-called rules-based order, which is functioning since 1945 through the United Nations and other multilateral bodies, have come under severe strain, especially for the last 25 years, if not more, where it has meant domination by one group of countries, the so-called Western world, Europe plus America and Canada, plus Australia and New Zealand. So this rules-based order, as they claim, they, whenever it suits them, they have taken this, and whenever it is concerning the global south, they have a different yardstick or approach. So these double standards, which have become obvious since the so-called war on terror from 2001 onwards, has alienated much of the global south in terms of selective application of rules in favor of the West and to the detriment of the South. And most of the global South people and countries have realized after years of colonialism and imperialism and exploitation that what was meant to be fairer world, especially the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and the WTO, has been working not in their favor, but in fact perpetuating the domination and exploitation of these countries in the global south by the former colonial powers. Like, for example, the African countries are drowning themselves in debt, and the interest, huge interest they have to pay, and mortgage their minerals and natural resources for years to come. With the result, people in most of the African countries live in dire poverty, and this is exploited again by the civil wars and the tribal wars and the coup d'etats and foreign interventions, especially from the West, which has been perpetuating this kind of unequal relationship. So the partnerships which were being tested for the last couple of decades have been under severe strain between the global South and the West. So all of these countries have realized that they need a new platform. They tried through the G77, they tried through the United Nations and various programs, Sustainable Development Program, and so on and so forth. But nothing seems to have changed the lives of the millions of people in the global south. And that is how any attempt to restructure the global multilateral organizations is resisted by the West, because they want to perpetuate their domination, and especially the US hegemony, which has been under question for quite some time. So the new initiative by these 5 countries, founders of BRICS, now added by some African and Asian countries, is hope for these countries in the global south for a new deal, a new movement, a new kind of a structure which will help them not only give them respect, but also help in the development of their economies, which have stagnated for quite some time. Because the people now have access through social media to the various developments around the world, political, diplomatic, economic, scientific, cultural, so on and so forth. They are aware and well informed about the unequal relationship which most global south is facing. In fact, they are at the receiving end. So they are looking for new partnerships, and I think BRICS is seen as a positive development, and that is how the global south is veering towards the new organization or the group of countries. The most important aspect is not just the one-to-one meeting or the multilateral meetings, which every year BRICS has in different member countries, but the silent interaction and partnerships which are growing within the global south. For example, if you take uh, the initiative of China or Russia or India in proposing trade in their local currencies, this is the future, because many people find it very expensive and cumbersome to trade in dollars and in euros. With the result now, barter trade and in local currencies offers them a good opportunity to save foreign exchange and also to increase their exports to the neighboring countries or within the global south. So the economic interaction, economic cooperation, trade deals, these are the things which are emerging in this new partnership, which is propelling these countries to see a multipolar world in place of the unipolar world dominated by the United States and its allies, who refuse to see the writing on the wall, because for the last at least a couple of years, it has become obvious, so obvious to the global south, that on the issue of Ukraine and Gaza, it has become polarized. On the one hand, the United States and NATO wants to push Ukraine towards bankruptcy, towards very harmful effects in the conflict with Russia, and sanction Russia and treat its oil and gas as the way the Europeans were having access to ban it. So, on the other hand, in Gaza, you have the United States supplying weapons along with the NATO countries, violating United Nations Charter, the Security Council resolutions, the unanimous resolutions passed by the General Assembly, overwhelmingly by over 145 members, calling on Israel to stop the genocide in Gaza and West Bank and other places around its countries. So, on the one hand, they want to uphold the UN Charter as far as Ukraine and Russia is concerned, and on the other hand, in Gaza, it has become obvious that the United States is not going to listen to any of these rules-based orders, as they claim, whether it is United Nations or the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court. And it is so blatant, the double standards, that global South countries, especially South Africa, has appealed to the International Court of Justice to take a decision on this because of the stalemate in the Security Council. No progress has been made, and this war is spreading and threatening to engulf not only the regional countries, but also such major powers in this. So the global South is watching the global so-called rules-based order, brick by brick, it is being dismantled by these own countries, whether it is invasion of Gaza or Lebanon or Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or this Libya, this Yemen and Somalia, innumerable countries where these countries have used their power and hegemonic instruments to cause discomfort to millions of people. And this lack of economic development and interventions trigger immigration and millions of people lose their lives on borders, in sea, and so on and so forth. So the hope from this global South members is for a multipolar world where countries like India, Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, and others who are interested in joining, like Turkey, Nigeria, or even Indonesia, Malaysia, so on and so forth. This will only strengthen the resolve of the global South to come together, to be respected, to be treated as equals, and also to share the economic fruits of each other's developments through trade and technical cooperation. The cultural program also, cultural cooperation between the countries is also strengthening among the global South countries, because they have realized that aping the West is no solution, because many of these countries have been old civilizations, old cultures, and they have much to offer for the other countries in the global South who share their aspirations, who share many similarities in that way. So, starting with economic and cultural cooperation, and of course the annual political meetings of the BRICS leaders, this is becoming a major fulcrum, major hub for international relations, and this is mainly because of the high-handedness of the United States and the West, which has abused the United Nations and the so-called rules-based order to suit its own hegemonic objectives, much to the discomfort of the global South. Another point which I would like to flag is, the conflicts within the global South, of course, are some of them are insurmountable. But there is a realization that unless and until the global South buries or resolves these conflicts, the external powers, especially the Western countries, would exploit them and try to divide the global South further, so that they don't come together on a common platform. And the recent decision by both India and China to resolve their border dispute, I think it's a glorious example of how this has unnerved countries like the United States and the NATO countries, who were hoping to exploit the Indo-Chinese differences to virtually get India on their side and fight their battles through India against China. So the realization among the elites in the global South that they must resolve their differences, is a very important development. First, it happened between Russia and China, because there were differences, there were border problems, but they have resolved to work together, and there's a virtual alliance. So now with India and China also resolving the border dispute and improving their relations and economic cooperation, this will only strengthen the resolve of the global South to work together. And I hope that the multipolar world which is in the making, would make progress in the coming years, although there will be attempts by the upholders of the rules-based order to divide and bring about a wedge within the global south. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I call upon Dr. Priyadarshi Dash, Associate Professor, Research and Information System for Developing Countries, RIS, New Delhi, to kindly take over the floor. May I request the speakers to kindly restrict your speech to 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please just put a buzzer or something 1 or 2 minutes before, so that it is easy to conclude if you can.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Professor Bharati Ramat, University of Mysore, for this timely panel discussion, because the BRICS summit is not very old. The summit declaration is still getting digested by the intellectual community and the students at large. As Professor Pasha was mentioning, new hopes, new hypes, and all is there. And how these new members would fit into the old 5 BRICS, and what sort of things are going to happen. So as I have been tasked to sort of focus on the development issues, so I try to see from that lens how far BRICS has gone in terms of populating the mandate of the BRICS, in terms of strengthening the development agenda and the possibilities around, given the new technological possibilities, the new formats of engagement among countries amid this geopolitical uncertainty and other things. So if you scan through the Kazan declaration, I could make out very strong and very bold statements made this time about the need for a global reconfiguration. And this has been used in a language like that. There are emerging powers. There is a need for Bretton Woods institutions, the multinational institutions, to make it more representative. So I want to split my presentation briefly into 3 categories. The first one, the structural changes that are needed in the global economy through BRICS, through BRICS-led processes and similar platforms like G20. Second one, what are those pillars within development where BRICS has the real strength to lead and guide the global south, the larger emerging market and developing country universe. And the third part is that how do we do that when we know that the challenges are there? So if you see in the structural sense, before expansion also, there was a lot of discussion within different platforms of BRICS that there is a need for correcting the international order. Developing emerging markets have got their economy, the share in the global economy has increased, the quality of population, the quality of institutions in the developing countries are not like 50s and 60s. So they have a role to contribute to the global governance, global development agenda. So why are they sitting in the back? So they should give a space to contribute to these things. So there have been discussion in the BRICS forum. But the expanded BRICS, before it happened, create a lot of noise around that. Will they stick to the original mandate of BRICS? Will they dilute the spirit of the BRICS cooperation? Will BRICS move out of the comfort of the emerging market agenda? Some of these things Professor Pasha has already some way or other addressed to. But if you see the role of the economic agenda of these, the economic dynamism in the emerging markets, Brazil, South Africa, India, China, and other emerging markets, they are big markets for the world. They observe a lot of investment, and they are also spearheading innovation technology in their own way. Because as I say, the quality of population, the quality of institutions is much more visible in these countries. So they have a greater role. So, but the expanded BRICS, it's too early to say that how much of dilution or how much of strengthening is happening in the BRICS process. But some of the things are very explicit in the Kazan Declaration. As I said, the modalities of engaging the other countries, partner countries, besides those who are willing to be part of BRICS, they have sort of worked out a modality. So that's a good thing. And they are saying African solutions for African problems. There is a line which says that we go with the paradigm that Africans can find solutions for their own problems. That's a good thing. The domestic solutions of the people of a country should explore or find out the solution themselves and then look for like-minded countries to contribute. Use of national currencies. Use of national currencies is not just an outcome of the supply chain disruptions. This has been there in the literature for quite some time, but there was difficulty that countries were sort of struggling that how can we use our own currencies for international trade and payment settlements. But it's a good time to bring that. The change, another thing that is happening in terms of structure, besides welcoming this, is to strengthen the track 2 processes. The track 2 processes are BRICS Academic Forum, BRICS Civil Forum, BRICS. There are hundreds of forums. I mean, not less than 10 or 15 forums Russia has organized. I was in a forum in September in Moscow, BRICS Future Forum and BRICS Green Cities Forum. I was asked in the presentation also to cover the sustainability part. So there we sort of argued in favor of public transport, because public transport saves energy, public transport saves money. More than that, public transport contributes to save the planet. And this was the major plank of G20 India presidency, that the life mission and other things, that we need to take care of our future generations before consuming everything or destroying for them. So there is a need for comprehensive reform of UN that has been suggested. Realignment of the IMF quota. The process has to expedite and happen in the 17th review. So that has been mentioned. Role of climate finance, strengthening the financial system, the BRICS chairship report, use of national currencies, contingency reserve arrangement. So there is a greater recognition of new powers contributing to the structural change that is needed in the international order. Second, the development agenda more or less continues in a gradual fashion. Greater recognition of the reversal, restoring the progress in SDG. Because during COVID, there was a reversal because countries are struggling with the debt, that they hardly have any fiscal space to run the programs. So there was a reversal. So how to sort of bring back the economies in a collaborative fashion among BRICS countries, within the larger emerging market and developing countries, sort of collective, that how to bring back the economies into sustainable development goal track. And then energy transition, climate change, all have been referred in the document very substantive way. Then the role of NDB, New Development Bank, how they can continue to support the BRICS development agenda by providing credit, supporting green transition, and all these. Then we have the importance of blended finance has been emphasized. This has been there in the G20 discussions from Indonesian presidency onwards in a vigorous way. Indonesian presidency did a lot of work on blended finance. Indian presidency strengthened it further. So blended finance is actually giving the opportunity for the private sector to contribute more than shy away from the projects, infrastructure projects, climate adaptation projects, just because the risk perception is high. So taking private sector on board, taking institutional investors on board, going for innovative financing instruments. So all these are the blended finance sort of subject matter. So that has been amplified, mentioned. And in general, there is a greater recognition of amplifying the voice of the global South in global finance, in global trade. On the trade domain, they are saying that the unilateral coercive measures, unilateral imposition of trade measures, which is not welfare enhancing, should be avoided, which was there in the general trade literature also. But it's time to recognize that there is a need for special and differential treatment for developing countries, because they are not positioned at the same level that the advanced countries and technologically superior countries. So special and differential treatment, dispute settlement mechanism, which actually work in WTO, even though there is not much happening in terms of multilateral trade negotiation after the failure of Doha development round. But at least dispute settlement system is working, and then SD special and differential treatment should be strengthened further, and discouraging unilateral imposition of tariff and non-tariff measures. And they continue to advocate a rule-based trading system. The role of WTO has been re-emphasized. So WTO has become a non-functioning organization. How to revive WTO so that the multilateral trading system works for the developing countries, because developing countries are not only importing, they are also in a position to export. So by not empowering or not restoring the role of WTO is denying the countries the export possibilities, because the vested interest group, as Professor Pasha was saying, is already sitting with the heavy dominance, which is not easy to dismantle in the short run. And a couple of points towards the end, that how do we do that? 5 members have joined, new members are still exploring the possibility of joining. The only way to do is that BRICS continue to live with its original mandate. If you see the declaration, past declaration, the current declaration, there is a reference to emerging market and developing countries.
So if I may.
Yeah, 1 minute, right? Okay, so
Yes,
I'm just winding it up. So what I'm saying is that emerging market and developing country issues were the core issues of BRICS, because they came out of an economic conceptualization than a geographical contiguous kind of configuration. They let them do that, think for alternative financial systems, credit rating systems, development financing, strengthening development finance flows to countries, dealing with the issues of ESG standards, green finance issues. These are the new areas where capacity gaps exist in developing countries. So unless they work, these areas will become again new standards and new burden for the developing countries. Second, BRICS has to work with the G20. Both the organizations have been having similar kind of stand as far as finance agenda is concerned, finance and macroeconomic coordination. If you read the BRICS declaration in the past 10 years and G20 declaration in the past years, if anything matches, then this is the area where they are converging. So most of the G20 India achievements are reflected here in Russian BRICS declaration. So there is a synergy in the process. That synergy needs to be harvested, and both G20 and BRICS processes can reinforce and put the development at the center, bring how to fund SDG related programs, how to help countries to generate capacities for climate adaptation, for empowering. There is a point clearly, the role of women has to be emphasized, which is a very critical, even though we all know that it is there in all documents, but it's worth mentioning that the role of women, especially in the leadership positions from the EMDC, emerging market and developing countries, that's a very big statement. So in essence, what I'm saying that while we celebrate the success of BRICS in terms of exploring new areas of cooperation, it's a lot of homework needed by the member countries to see that how that BRICS platform continue to remain a viable platform of discussion and not mindlessly expanding the agenda of BRICS, so that we don't focus on anything and achieve anything out of this. So I think this is the short intervention from my side. If there are queries, I'll respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now invite Mr. Anton Afanasiev, who's a PhD Dr. Anton Afanasiev, leading researcher at the Southern Federal University, authorized representative for international relations with BSEC member states, state expert on science and technology, vice president on international relations at the BASAC Facilitation Association.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, dear Commander Visan, dear Dr. Hemat, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the floor. Well, glad to be here. Then again, warmest regards from Marina Borovskaya from Russia. Well, let me start with the quote of the President of Russia from the expanded meeting of the BRICS Summit. So to fully realize the potential of our growing economies and take advantage of the new wave of global economic growth, our countries need to strengthen cooperation in areas such as technology, education, efficient resource development, trade, logistics, finance, and insurance. It's not a coincidence that technology and education comes first in that sentence, because BRICS cooperation in science and technology can and does significantly contribute to bridging the global digital divide and advancing artificial intelligence alongside other emerging technologies. The BRICS countries have a significant global scientific research and innovation potential and influence. More than 42,000 scientists from the BRICS 10 are featured in the top 2% of most cited scientists across the globe, based on the Stanford Elsevier top 2 scientist rankings in 2024, which constitutes 16.4 for BRICS 5 or 19% for BRICS 10, with more than 5,000 for India. Separately, the numbers are significant, especially if we take China, but synergetic effect from current and potential collaboration in that field, meaning STI, is significant. That's why that's the one of the reasons that Kazan Declaration acknowledges the enormous potential of the BRICS countries in the sphere of STI and the proposed protocol to Memorandum of Understanding of Cooperation in STI as well, and commands the work of the BRICS STI Steering Committee, being one of the crucial mechanisms to manage and ensure the successful holding of BRICS STI activities. It should be mentioned that BRICS in general pays special attention to supporting joint scientific and technological projects. Since 2016, the network of national contact points was established, including STI funding agencies within the BRICS STI Innovation Framework. According to FP Call Secretariat, there are 12 NCPs, contact points from 5 countries currently, with the hope of further extension. Since the launch of that STI framework program, more than 1,600 applications for BRICS STI FP calls have been accepted from more than 5,000 research teams within BRICS countries. So 157 projects were supported through 2016 to 2023. Surely, further extension of cooperation in social sciences and humanities, which is also included in the Kazan Declaration, is noteworthy. The establishment of the BRICS working group specifically on those sciences and the further development of a framework program, STI framework program, in a view of the development of those fields or those domains is quite crucial from our point of view. Surely the continuation of the development of STI flagship projects and developing the platform for financing of those flagship projects will be the future of the further development of that particular area. Collaboration and further collaboration will definitely prosper from the development of scientific systems and databases, One of the recent examples of the international ranking of BRICS universities, published in October, by the way, showed that it's an example of a separate ranking for a specific category of countries that include BRICS countries and the specifics of BRICS countries. Speaking of which, speaking of databases, the domain of intellectual property arises. The cooperation of the BRICS intellectual property offices and exchange of best practices and experience in the field of IP, in particular on advanced technologies issues aimed at supporting right holders, including medium and small enterprises and talent management and IP protection, surely with commercialization and utilization and the increase of that particular utilization of patents and intellectual property in general is highlighted in Kazan Declaration. BRICS as a group in general registered more than half 42, around half 42.6% of all patents in the world during the period from 2009 till nowadays. So if we take three countries, China, India, and Russia, they maintain in top 20 of the world ranking by the number of patent applications, and five countries are in the top 20. So that cooperation leads us, and the domain of intellectual property leads us further to the rapid technological change, including the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence that has the potential to bring new opportunities for socioeconomic development around the globe. Hence, it's noteworthy to mention that there is also a Russian proposal in the Kazan Declaration to establish a BRICS alliance in the realm of artificial intelligence that also was previously endorsed, and well, that particular field and the proposals in that field were also provided by China and I believe India. The field of artificial intelligence is quite acute for now. So the innovative aims and the initiatives that are there to regulate artificial intelligence, including measures to prevent their unlawful use, are well, arguable and are on the discussion, let's say. By the way, in Russia, the business community has adopted a code of ethics in the area of artificial intelligence, which could be joined by other BRICS partners and other nations. So artificial intelligence with the digital transformation as well will be two topics that will guide scientific and technological advancement within BRICS or within the framework of BRICS with the nearest future, I believe. So the importance of creating and enabling those technologies within the digital economy and digital transformation is quite important and is actually recognized or showed by different, rankings and indices, like for instance, UN that for Frontier Technology Readiness Index that shows on average a 10% overall growth for BRICS countries. But in general, this all necessitates further development in the field of not only technologies but also the education, because the in sub-index in that particular frontier technology readiness is related to skills is well, it showed less growth, only 2% growth, while other parts like level of ICT infrastructure and growth of the R&D capacity are 26% and 8% respectively. But for skills, it's only 2% growth for the BRICS countries. Hence, the further development of education and the cooperation in education will be in order, and it is also included in the Kazan Declaration with the further extension of BRICS Network University. By the way, only this year, there was a decision of the ministers of education of BRICS countries to extend the number of universities to 20 from each country. I mean, there are 10 countries right now in BRICS. So the number of universities and the number of directions and areas of research will be extended as well. So including mathematics, natural sciences, social and humanitarian sciences, which is very important, sustainable agriculture, food security, health sciences, and others. Surely science technology can go without energy. So energy and industrial development, considering the fact that there are more than 2,500 special economic areas, which may include technological clusters, and further development of that cooperation, regional cooperation, is quite crucial for, well, further development of the grouping. But the last but not least moment that I would like to mention is the technological entrepreneurship, which somehow allows us to combine those STI, education, industry in one, let's say, domain that gives us the opportunity to develop new projects, new initiatives involving youth and providing them opportunities to level up their skills in technological entrepreneurship, and not only as an opportunity to compete within BRICS or with other countries with BRICS, but to extend the team building with different countries of the grouping, and to extend that team building and to create teams for the benefit of BRICS and BRICS countries, so fitting new ways to solve global issues. And in the conclusion, I would like to say that the BRICS summit in Kazan is a new impetus to strengthening constructive and mutual beneficial cooperation between the countries of the global majority, including in terms of the expanding humanitarian exchanges in the interest of socio-economic development, which is fully reflected in that Kazan Declaration. Yeah, and in this minutes of the summit of BRICS Plus. So finding new opportunities to solve problems in all relevant areas is a common vision shared by all BRICS countries. It seems that mutual respect, humanitarian cooperation, and dialogue of cultures that have developed within the BRICS framework with the help of science diplomacy, culture diplomacy, sport diplomacy, and other types of diplomacy, and any other mechanism of cooperation will remain one of the key elements for further expansion of the grouping and strengthening the interaction within BRICS. Thank you very much for the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now invite Dr. Krishna Prasad N, Director, Kaveri Ayurvedic Medical College and Hospital, and Managing Director, Nature Well Wellness Clinic, Mysore, Karnataka. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to participate in this discussion. I will be speaking or sharing my views on BRICS and global health, the collaborative pathways for sustainable development. See, there are global health challenges in the form of our preparedness towards invasion of pathogens, controlling spread of infections, preventing mass infectious diseases, addressing antimicrobial resistance, preventing adverse drug reactions, and so on. See, these health affecting issues are posing threat to the health indicators, thereby causing hurdles towards achieving sustainable development goals, particularly for good health and well-being. Health indicators pertaining to the mortality from cardiovascular diseases, cancer incidences, or incidence of diabetes, depression, obesity, and these other metabolic disorders are DALY, disability adjusted life years, ADL, activities of daily living. This certainly can be minimized because these are in our own hands. Minimizing the health expenditure or percentage of GDP towards healthcare is possible when there is a paradigm shift towards preventive measures in equal or even more than only towards corrective measures. Day in and day out, the governments, nations, international collaborations are there and are thinking and acting for sustainable development and are turning every stone. I would like to kind of see the accountability at individual levels as the responsibility of any nation's citizen to realize these sustainable development goals. See, I as an individual should practice wellness means and measures for the, my own health and well-being. Unless I grow or use organic food or, kind of practice yoga or meditation or I walk daily or I exercise, when these things become routine, then only, the health is possible. If I don't practice detox measures, if I don't practice, de-stress measures for the maintenance of my own health, and I as an individual can't achieve my own health, and thereby I cannot bring the same in the society, nor in the nation, nor at the international levels. See, governments across the nations have all the rules and regulations for every other thing on the earth. What mandatory things are to set as rules for the maintenance of health in the prevention of usage of health hazardous waste and means in agriculture or food processing or any other thing that goes into the human body or animals or environment or to the nature. So it cannot be a choice anymore. No, the sustainable ways should be the only ways. So there are, we see there are health insurances for the medical conditions. We need wellness insurances for promoting wellness measures. And this should be compulsory wellness insurances. So then that we will be able to see a sea change in the sustainable development goals achievement in health sector. India is definitely a hope and will be the wellness destination in future. And everyone can look forward for collaboration, particularly with the Ayush sector to achieve these sustainable health goals. So with this, I conclude my remarks and views, and I thank the organizers for the opportunity given to me. Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you very much, sir. I now invite Mr. Rahul Karan Reddy, Senior Research Analyst, Organization of Research on China and Asia, Delhi. You may please take over the.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Commodore Vasan, Sapna, and the team at C3S for, as well as the faculty at the University of Mysore, along with Devaraja Gowda sir and Dr. Bharti, who have put together this excellent panel and for inviting me to speak. If you hear explosions in the back, it's because Diwali has begun here. So I apologize for that, for the sound. But it is great to engage with C3S once again, and the place where I started my career as an analyst in the field of China studies. We've heard some excellent presentations today, and I'll try and add to what has already just been said, and I'll maybe focus on financial institutions that make up the BRICS architecture and contextualize it within the global financial landscape. So if you go through the intergovernmental declarations made at the end of every BRICS summit, it becomes clear that the purpose of the grouping has been to change international financial institutions to reflect the growing economic influence of developing and global South countries. I won't go deep into why the rationale what is the rationale for this for the reform of international institutions is a necessary priority for BRICS. But I'll offer a few simplifications, like the fact that structural adjustment programs and austerity measures have been hugely unpopular. The Western the financial system, and mainly the dollar, has been leveraged to sanction countries with unfriendly relations with the West. And there are a few other reasons as well. BRICS so far has created a few financial mechanisms to offer an alternative to the existing financial architecture. The New Development Bank was created nearly a decade ago to offer an alternative to the development financing offered by the IMF and the World Bank. And in less than a decade, almost a decade, it has approved $32 billion of development finance for 96 projects across the world. But the New Development Bank has a long way to go in terms of offering an actual alternative to the World Bank and IMF. And one of these challenges is to scale up its lending and operations. And it must do so while competing with other bilateral and multilateral lenders as well. So, for example, the World Bank in 2021 alone committed $99 billion in over 190 countries. So, replacing the World Bank and IMF is not accurate in the short term. But the fact that the NDB operates in the same space as the IMF and the World Bank is an achievement to note. And I think there are a few issues for the NDB to address, such as its access to information policy and the way that the board of directors operates. And here I will just offer some of the testimony of one former vice president of the New Development Bank, who said that governance within the NDB can be improved in terms of the board of directors, who should be given greater powers, in terms of transparency, which can be enhanced because very little information is available about the loans and projects that the NDB undertakes. On top of that, there are staffing challenges that he mentions. But to balance that out, what I'd like to say is that the NDB's existence and operations have actually pushed the IMF and World Bank to operate slightly differently, to start thinking about development finance differently. And this is reflected in the speeches that are made by the World Bank's, by the managing director of the IMF just before the start of her second term. Besides the NDB, there is the contingent reserve arrangement, which is an important pillar of the BRICS financial architecture. The CRA is a mechanism for the provision of mutual support through liquidity and precautionary instruments in response to short-term potential or actual balance of payments crises or pressures. And this arrangement is a small but noteworthy step because I think it sort of fulfills the purpose of finding alternatives to the IMF's conditionalities. But the thing is, so far, no credit or balance of payments support operations have been carried out. Only test runs have been undertaken. I think the 7th test run was concluded and announced in the Kazan Declaration, but not beyond that. So in order to fulfill the purpose of the fund, to sort of free BRICS member countries from these IMF conditionalities, CRA operations need to take off. And although the central banks of some countries resist the CRA, some analysts argue that it is important to expand the total size of resources available to the CRA, that new countries must be allowed to join in, and its flexibility must be increased. Here, it's also important to have a surveillance unit like the Chiang Mai initiative in Singapore. And finally, I'll just say a couple of things about the de-dollarization effort. BRICS Plus is actually slowly but surely increasing its foothold in regional trade and becoming more focused on the trade between member countries, which is intra-regional trade, which is a highly relevant indicator for this de-dollarization effort. And this increase in intra-regional trade and at the same time, the increase in the individual economic heft of countries like India, China, and Russia is accelerating this process. So, for example, the BRICS Plus is de-dollarizing its financial flows from above average levels. If you look at compared to 2020 and you look at the data of 2024, you can see that there is a declining share of US dollars in their cross-border bank claims, in the international debt securities, and broader external debt. So this is a much more, obviously, this is a much more complex arena of operations as well as of analysis for scholars and analysts. So I will not get into much depth here in the interest of time. Overall, based on the creation of these institutions like the NDB, the CRA, and as well as the BRICS broad canvas of operations, it's clear that the BRICS financial architecture is a highly valuable asset, and it adds a truly multilateral approach to development finance. There are several opportunities to take advantage of in terms of how this architecture is operated. And I think all of this ultimately means greater benefits for the countries of the global south. One final thing I will say here is that great powers and great power dynamics within the BRICS architecture, they have actually propelled better outcomes. So China, Russia, and India, they have similar but competing outlooks and methodologies for achieving some very principal issues like multipolarity, reform of international institutions, and championing the global South cause. And I've detailed how this competitive articulation of converging interests adds great value to BRICS and the global south in a recent article that I've written, and I will post that in the chat in case anyone in the audience is interested. I will stop here and hand over back to Sapna. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rahul. May I now invite Commodore R.S. Vasan to give the concluding remarks.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's been a wonderful session, and I must thank all the panelists for bringing such rich, discourse this evening on the eve of Deepavali. So, Rahul, I must assure you that we did not hear any explosions, but I'm hearing all the explosions here next to my house, and I hope you're not perturbed with that. No, I think what's important is that this has become a very important hallmark for the global players, and the West, as rightly brought out by all of you, has taken cognizance of the new block. I don't want to call it a block, but I would like to call it as the unification of the minds who are trying to shape the future of the countries, particularly from the developing south. I think the last speaker, Rahul, made a very important point about the importance that's been given to economy. De-dollarization is not going to happen overnight. Now let's all accept the fact that dollar will continue to be there for a long time. But more and more such initiatives, whether it is on the digital platforms, whether it is UPI, whether it is moving over to another form of common currency, all these are initiatives that would definitely put a phenomenal amount of pressure on other players who have dominated the global scene. That is where the relevance of BRICS and all the players, is important to us as we are conducting these discussions. Professor Pasha, Mr. Anton, and various others have also brought out the importance of restructuring. On restructuring, we've been talking about the United Nations Security Council, and it's almost like flogging a dead horse. Every forum, every sideline, we talk about the need for restructuring the United Nations Security Council, but on the ground, the high table is not allowing anybody else to come in. So this is where the organizations such as the one which you examined just now have great relevance in bringing about those kind of pressures on international institutions which are hold firm, like also brought up by Professor Pasha since 1945. That is since the future of the war. It is the West has dominated the entire discourse and the narratives wherever we are. Whether it is returning out something, whether it is getting somebody on board. So they have had a phenomenal amount of clout in maintaining this exclusivity of the club. That is not good for the welfare of the developing countries. So therefore, I think all the speakers have made it a point to tell us how important Kazan has been this time. And like I said in my opening remarks, For India particularly, it is of great relevance, particularly as we are trying to march together as two Asian powers. And I'm not saying that it's easy. Like I also cautioned earlier, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But at least the fact that after 4 years, after nearly 5 years, we have come to an understanding, reinforces the confidence of the developing countries to say, yes, we can look for a joint leadership from India and China and Russia, of course, which has its own great advantages despite the war. And therefore, this would provide those kind of alternatives to the people who are looking for the world that belongs to all of us. So the one earth, one family, one future is not a slogan. This is what we need to work for. And India and Indian leadership in all the forums have made it a point to say that we need to work together. And security and growth for all in the region is not just a slogan, but if we have to make this happen, the organizations such as BRICS and the alternatives that there will be many, many bilateral regional forums. It could be ASEAN, it could be SAARC, it could be the SEO dialogue that took place. Many of these forums now are fairly conscious of the need to come together and also work on the agenda that will ensure that we don't leave behind a world that is not fit for inheritance by the future generations. So that's all I have to say. And Sapna, do we have any time for taking some questions, or we don't have any time at all?
So we have 5 more minutes. Maybe we can take one or two.
All right, we'll ask some questions to be posted here, and maybe we can club them together and ask whoever it is addressed to. No, we will not be asking you to say your piece on the mic because of time constraints. But if you do have any important question and say who it is addressed to, Sapna will direct it at the speaker.
We'll be able to take 2 questions. If any of the participants have any questions, kindly note it down on the chat box. We will take the questions to the speakers.
Yeah, Sapna, I suppose everybody's busy going for crackers and trying to celebrate the
Yes.
Diwali.
So I think we have one question from.
All right, please take it.
Yes, from Ms. Renuka Hirimat. So as Dr. Priyadarshi Dash sir had mentioned that there is a need to support women's leadership and to enhance women's role in governance in BRICS countries. And is there a need for gender sensitive policy making and to reach rural areas of developing countries?
So is Dr. Priyadarshan there or has he left?
So I think he has left the meeting.
No issues. I think in that case, all that is left for me is to hand over to Sapna for the Thanksgiving and also to thank so many of you. I was so very happy to see 50 plus participants here today on the year of Diwali. Let me take this opportunity to wish you all a great Diwali and a prosperous year ahead. And as far as China Watch is concerned, which was also I acknowledge the role played by Rahul in Chennai Center for China Studies when we started the China Watch. This issue of China Watch that's going to come out in a day or two has a dedicated discussion on BRICS, and which will also carry the recording of this with the permission of but I would recommend all of you to go through. So with that, over to you, Sapna, for the traditional Thanksgiving.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. As we have reached the end of this wonderful and very comprehensive discussion, it is my honor to give the vote of thanks. First and foremost, we'd like to extend a sincere thanks to all the distinguished speakers who has joined us from across India and the world, and giving us a very comprehensive and deep understanding of the BRICS, and especially based on the BRICS 2024 summit. Thank you very much for taking your time, especially for whoever from India for on a Diwali Eve. Thank you so much for joining in. And on behalf of all the organizers, I extend a sincere thanks to all of you. I would like to take the opportunity to thank Professor Devaraja Gowda, who's a principal, Maharaja's College, University of Mysore, to taking out time and honoring the gathering today. I take this opportunity to thank all the collaborators of this discussion, Department of International Relations, Maharaja's College, University of Mysore, Chennai Center for China Studies, Kaveri Ayurvedic Medical College, and also National Maritime Foundation. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Bharati Hiremath, Head Department of International Relations, Mysore University, for this idea to have this discussion and also taking out the initiative and ensuring that this program goes very well and smoothly. Thank you very much for all your support, ma'am. And also I'd like to thank Commodore R.S. Vasan for being there throughout the process and helping us and guiding us throughout the discussion. Thank you very much. And as I'm concluding my vote of thanks to all the participants, thank you very much. And we hope that you had a very wonderful session. And we hope to host you all soon for such discussions. As I'm concluding, we wish you all a very happy Diwali. Thank you.
Continuing to your Sapna's vote of thanks, I must thank to Arafan say that Anthan for joining. Can you hear me, Anthan? For joining us and making you free to join us. And I hope in future we will have many more discussions in joint discussion in near coming days. Thank you for joining us, and also many of them joined from Reva University, and I must thankful to Reva University and audience also, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Well, looking forward for further cooperation. Thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all. God bless.